Hey there, and welcome back to Slumber and Spouse. Leave your own worries at the door because tonight I have a bunch of new relationship stories for you to unwind and enjoy. I always love seeing our late night listeners, so let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is right now in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would honestly mean a lot to me. Now take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's start with our first story.
Story 1.
I was standing in the staff room, holding a chipped mug of tea, when my phone vibrated. The family WhatsApp group. I hadn't been active there in months. Silence had become my language. The message was short, surgical. Mother's Day dinner this Sunday. All my children are successful except you. You chose to be a lowly teacher, and I no longer see you as my daughter. No typo, no hesitation. Just a public execution delivered between forwarded prayers and emojis. I didn't reply. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I watched the blue ticks pile up. My siblings read it. Some left reactions. No one objected. That was the moment my childhood ended for good. I remember when she used to braid my hair before school. Her fingers were gentle then. She told everyone I was the smartest of her children. She'll go far, she used to say. I believed her. I believed that love was permanent. Then success became a competition. My brothers chased money. My sister married it. I chose teaching. I chose quiet classrooms, chalk dust, and children who needed patience more than profit. My mother stopped bragging about me. Then she stopped calling. Then she stopped introducing me as her daughter. I told myself it didn't matter. But betrayal always lands quietly before it screams. The signs were small at first. Family events scheduled when I couldn't attend. Group photos where I was cropped out. Conversations that froze when I entered the room. Then came the message, not private. Public. She wanted witnesses. I felt the familiar urge to explain myself, to prove my worth, to beg for recognition that should have been automatic. Instead, something else happened. I went very still. That night, I packed one suitcase. I resigned from my job 2 months later. I moved cities without announcements or goodbyes. I let them believe what they wanted, that I had failed, that I was fragile, that I had disappeared because I couldn't handle the truth. In reality, I was building something they couldn't see. I went back to school. Not loudly, not proudly. I studied educational psychology, curriculum design, child development. While they flaunted promotions and luxury cars, I learned how systems work, how institutions fail, how reputations are manufactured. I didn't want revenge then. I wanted independence. Revenge came later. Years passed. My mother aged faster than she expected. My siblings' success thinned under debt, scandals, quiet layoffs they didn't post online. And me? I became the director of an educational foundation. I trained teachers, I advised boards, I spoke at conferences my family had never heard of. I never corrected them. I waited. The invitation came 5 years later. A formal email. No emojis. We would like to invite you as the keynote speaker for Mother's Day Education Summit. The host? My mother. She didn't know it was me. She only knew the title, the reputation, the funding attached to my name. I accepted. The room was full when I walked in. White tablecloths, applause timed to cues. My mother sat in the front row, posture proud, smile rehearsed. She clapped hardest. She didn't recognize me at first. Not until I stepped up to the microphone. I watched her face change. Confusion. Calculation. Fear. I didn't acknowledge her, not yet. I spoke about dignity, about undervalued professions, about how teachers shape futures while being erased by families obsessed with status. Every word landed like a quiet accusation. Then I paused, and I said calmly, "My first lesson in rejection didn't come from society. It came from my own home." The room held its breath. I turned to her. My mother once told me I was no longer her daughter because I chose to teach. Gasps, whispers. Phones lifted. She stood up. Tried to speak. I raised my hand. Let me finish. I explained how success isn't inherited, it's revealed. How love that depends on achievement isn't love at all. How walking away saved me. I didn't insult her. I didn't shout. I told the truth. By the time I finished, the applause wasn't polite. It was decisive. Sponsors withdrew from her initiative that week. Board members resigned quietly. Family friends stopped calling. Not because I asked them to, because now they saw. After the event, she found me backstage. She looked smaller, older, unarmed. "I didn't know," she said. "You should have told me." I smiled. "I did," I replied. "You just didn't listen." I didn't reclaim my place in the family. I didn't need it anymore. I went back to my life, my work, my chosen name. Some betrayals don't deserve confrontation. They deserve consequence. And the best revenge? Letting them discover too late who they lost and who took their place.
Story 2. The divorce was for a divorce pretty painless. We sat at the big oak table where we'd eaten 1,000 family dinners signing papers instead of passing the salt. Sarah cried a little. I patted her hand. And that was that. 22 years signed away in triplicate. The problem wasn't the divorce. The problem was the house. "I just can't sell it, Caleb," she said, looking around the kitchen like the walls were old friends. Liam took his first steps right there. Chloe's height chart is still on the pantry door. "I know," I said. And I did. I loved the house too. But I was the one moving out, crashing on my brother's couch until I could find a place. She had the equity, I had a duffel bag. That's when the idea hit me. It was brilliant, one of those clean, simple solutions that solves everything at once. "Don't sell it," I said, leaning forward. "Stay here. The kids can come visit and nothing has to change for them. Or for you." Her eyes narrowed. "And you?"
Where do you go? I found a place, I said, pulling out my phone. I showed her the pictures of the little bungalow over on the east side. It was a wreck, sure, but it had potential. Real character. It needs work, but I can get it for a steal. All I need is the capital for the down payment and the reno. So you want me to buy you out? She started doing the math in her head. I could see her ticking off the numbers. Caleb, there isn't enough cash in the equity for that. Not even close. No, not buying me out. That's the beauty of it. I leaned back, feeling the familiar rush of a good idea taking shape. We do a cash-out refi. A home equity loan. We pull out enough for my new place, you keep living here. And we leave the rest of the equity in the house. It's a win-win. You stay, I get a start, and the kids eventually inherit a paid-off home. We're not losing an asset, we're leveraging it. She just stared at me. Alone against this time's house. With you making the payments, I felt that old familiar prickle of annoyance. Yes, Sarah. I'll be making the payments. From my own account. It's just a loan. It's what people with vision do. They use their assets to build more assets. It sounds risky, she said, wringing her hands. The same gesture she'd made 100 times over the years whenever I'd suggested starting a business or investing in a friend's can't-miss idea. Risky. What's risky is selling our biggest asset in a down market and splitting the cash. That's lighting money on fire. This, I said, tapping the oak table, is smart. It's creative. What if you can't make the payments? I threw my hands up. Sarah, come on. This is what I'm talking about. This is what you always did. You'd shrink from every opportunity because you were afraid of the what if. You can't live in the what ifs. Sometimes you have to take a calculated risk. It held us back for years. That stung her. I knew it would. She flinched. That's not fair, she whispered. Isn't it? I pressed gentler this time. Look, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to make this work for everyone. For the kids. Don't you want them to have this place someday? The one with their height chart on the door. She looked at the pantry, and I knew I had her. She was thinking with her heart, and I was thinking with my head. That was always the difference between us. A week later, we were at the bank signing a new set of papers. She held the pen like it was a snake, but she signed. The first few months were a blur of sledgehammers and sawdust. The bungalow was more of a money pit than I'd anticipated. The charming vintage wiring was a fire hazard that had to be torn out and replaced. The minor roof leak turned out to be rotten joists and a colony of carpenter ants. Every time I turned around, another contractor was handing me an invoice that was double the estimate. The loan money I'd pulled from the family house vanished. Then my savings. Then came the credit cards. I made the first 3 loan payments on time. The 4th was a week late. The 5th was 3 weeks late. For the 6th, I only sent half with a little note promising to catch up. I was juggling invoices, robbing Peter, to pay Paul, certain that once the house was livable and I could get a renter in the spare room, everything would stabilize. The letters started coming. First, they were polite white envelopes from the bank's mortgage services department. Asterisk, a friendly reminder. Asterisk, I tossed them in the pile with the Home Depot receipts. Then the envelopes turned yellow. Asterisk, notice of intent to accelerate. Asterisk, the language got uglier, filled with words like delinquency and default. Sarah called me, her voice tight with anxiety. Caleb, I got a letter from the bank. It said the payment is overdue. It's a mix-up, sir, I lied, walking through my half-finished living room drywall, dust crunching under my boots. I switched bank accounts and the auto pay didn't go through. I'm handling it. Don't worry. You're sure? Positive, I said, my heart hammering. Have I ever let you down? I knew the answer to that, and so did she. But she let it go. She wanted to believe me. The 7th payment I missed entirely. I just didn't have it. A surprise plumbing disaster had wiped me out. I told myself it was fine. Banks don't foreclose on a house for 1 or 2 missed payments. They're big, slow machines. As long as I was making an effort throwing them a few $100 here and there, they wouldn't actually pull the trigger. They just wanted to scare me. I worked 18-hour days on the bungalow, fueled by cheap coffee and sheer panic. I stopped answering calls from unknown numbers. I screened Sarah's calls, texting her back with cheerful one-line updates. Times, almost done with the kitchen. Looks great, asterisk. The certified letter came on a Tuesday. I had to sign for it from a tired-looking mailman. It was thick. I didn't even open it. I knew what it was. I set it on the dusty countertop and stared at it, my chest feeling tight and cold. This was just another scare tactic. A bigger, more expensive one, but still just a tactic. I would call them tomorrow. I'd work something out. I went back to sanding the drywall, the whine of the machine drowning out everything else. I worked until my arms ached and my eyes burned. It was almost midnight when my phone buzzed. It was my son Liam. I almost ignored it, but a jolt of guilt made me answer. Hey buddy, what's up? I tried to sound normal, casual. His voice was thin, strained. Dad, what did you do? What are you talking about? I'm at Mom's, he said, his voice cracking. She's a wreck. There's a notice taped to the front door. An official-looking sign with a big red header. My blood went cold. A sign? What kind of sign? I don't know, he choked out, his voice a mix of confusion and fury. It says the house is being sold. At an auction. On the courthouse steps. Dad. It's for next month. The phone felt slick with sweat in my hand. I hung up without saying goodbye and stood there in the silence of my half-gutted house. The hum of the dehumidifier filling the space where Liam's voice had been. A sign. A fucking sign. It was posturing. A legal formality. That's all. I drove over there like a madman, my old truck rattling with every pothole. And there it was. Stuck to the front door, we'd painted Robin's egg blue a decade ago. It was a laminated sheet, stark white, with a blood-red header notice of trustee's sale. The words were clinical, brutal. Asterisk, involuntary public auction. Asterisk, I ripped it off the door, tearing the wood finish a little. My hands were shaking. The door was unlocked. I walked in, calling her name. Sarah. The house was chaos. Boxes everywhere, stacked 3 and 4 high. The big oak table was covered in packing paper and rolls of tape. Sarah was standing by the pantry. Her back to me, carefully cutting a rectangle of drywall out with a utility knife. It was the section with Chloe's height chart. The bank called me an hour before Liam did. She said, her voice flat, dead. She didn't turn around. They were very polite. Asked if we would be vacating the premises voluntarily. Sir, we can fix this. I'll call them. I'll get a second mortgage on the bungalow. I'll work something out. Stop. She finally turned the knife still in her hand. Her face was puffy, her eyes raw. Just stop. Caleb. Stop talking. Stop planning. You've done enough. Liam and Chloe came down the stairs, then their arms full of photo albums. They stopped dead on the landing looking at me like I was a stranger who just kicked in their door. Chloe's eyes, so much like her mother's, were blazing with a hatred I'd never seen before. You have a lot of nerve showing up here, she said, her voice trembling. This is still my house too. I snapped back, instantly defensive. The words felt hollow as soon as they left my mouth. Not for long, Liam said, his voice cold as ice. He came down the rest of the stairs and stood between me and his mother. He'd gotten so tall. When did that happen? Mom's moving in with me. We're getting her things out before the bank changes the locks. They were a unit. A fortress. Sarah, Liam, Chloe, and I was on the outside. A sudden hot wave of indignation washed over me. I looked at the boxes, at their grim, determined faces. So that's it, I said, my voice rising. You all just circle the wagons around her. What about me? Huh? I'm the one who's been breaking my back for 6 months on that damn bungalow trying to build something. Where's my help? Where's my support? Chloe let out a laugh that was more like a sob. Support you want times our times. Support you set fire to Mom's life. And you're wondering why no one is bringing you a bucket of water. I didn't set fire to anything. I yelled, gesturing wildly around the dismantled room. It was a plan. A good plan that just didn't work out. These things happen. The reno cost more than I thought. I had some bad luck. I'm the one who's lost everything. You've lost everything. Liam stepped forward, his face inches from mine. She's the one losing her home of 22 years. We're the ones losing the only home we've ever known. All because of your brilliant can't-miss idea. You didn't have bad luck, Dad. You had bad judgment. You're an idiot. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Asterisk idiot. Asterisk my own son. You watch your mouth, I said, my voice low and threatening. No, he said, not backing down an inch. You listen. For once in your life, you just listen. You wrecked this. You. Not the contractors, not the bank. You did this to her. To us. I was trying to make it work for everyone. I pleaded, my anger deflating into a desperate whine. I was trying to be smart with our assets. Our assets. Chloe finally came down the stairs, dropping the photo albums on a box with a thud. You cashed out her security. You gambled her half of the house and lost. This isn't some business deal that went south, Dad. This is Mom's life. What is she supposed to do now? She's 51 years old with no house and no savings because you drained them for your stupid vision. I looked at Sarah. She was just watching, holding the piece of drywall with her children's history on it like a shield. She wouldn't even look me in the eye. I'm your father, I said, looking back at my children, feeling cornered. You have a responsibility to me too. You have 2 parents to support, not just one. It was the wrong thing to say. I knew at the moment the words were out. Liam's face hardened into stone. Chloe looked at me with pure disgust. Support you, Chloe said, her voice dripping with venom. No. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sell that money pit you bought. And with whatever you get, you're going to give Mom her half of what this house was worth. And then every single month you are going to send her a check. Not child support. Survival support. You owe her. That's insane, I stammered. I can't afford that. I have my own expenses. I have loans. The bungalow still isn't finished. Then get a second job, Liam cut in his voice final. Drive for Uber. Sell your truck. I don't care. But you were going to pay her for what you did. That's the only conversation we're having from now on. You call us when you have the first payment ready. Otherwise, don't call. He turned his back on me, picking up a box and heading for the door. Come on, Chloe. Let's get this loaded. Chloe gave me one last look, a mixture of pity and contempt, and followed him out. I was left standing in the wreckage of my old life alone with my ex-wife. She still hadn't said a word to me. She walked past me, placing the rectangle of drywall carefully into a padded box and sealed it with tape. I stood there for a long time waiting for her to say something, to yell, to cry, to absolve me. She did none of it. She just kept packing. I finally left the silence chasing me out the door. Back in the bungalow, sitting on an overturned paint bucket, I replayed the conversation in my head. They just didn't get it. They were emotional. Hysterical. How was I supposed to pay her when I was barely staying afloat myself? Why was I the villain? It was a risk. A calculated one. The plan just didn't work out. Why couldn't anyone understand that? Story 3.
I always liked Mark. When he and Lena first moved in next door, they were the perfect suburban cliche. We'd trade hedge trimming tips over the fence. They'd bring over a bottle of wine for our barbecues, and our kids, my 7-year-old son Leo and their 2 Josh and Maya, were thick as thieves. Our backyards became one big shared park. It was easy. Then the cliche shattered. My wife Sarah came home one night, her face pale, her knuckles white around her car keys. Lena called me, she said, her voice a tight wire. Mark's been screwing his assistant for 6 months. And just like that, the easy part was over. The divorce was a meat grinder. Vicious. Lena moved out, landing in an apartment across town, but Mark stayed. The house, the yard, the ghost of their family, he kept it all along with the kids, Thursday through Sunday. Sarah's loyalty, of course, was welded to Lena. They'd been best friends since college. I'd listen to Sarah on the phone for hours, her voice a low murmur of outrage and consolation. He's a monster, sweetie, a soulless pig. I didn't see it that way. I saw a guy who'd made a catastrophic mistake. When I'd see him taking out the recycling, he just looked hollowed out. He'd give me a tired wave, and I'd wave back. He was a cheater, not a leper. Sarah disagreed. You shouldn't be friendly with him, Alex. He's our neighbor, Sarah. What am I supposed to do? Throw rocks at his windows? Her jaw tightened. She didn't have an answer for that. Then her mission started. It was subtle at first. She started inviting Josh and Maya over constantly. Leo misses them, she'd say, which was true. But they weren't just playdates anymore. They were intel gathering sessions. The first time I noticed it, they were all at the kitchen table with milk and cookies. So, what did your dad make you for dinner last night? Sarah asked, her voice syrupy sweet. Pizza, Josh, the older one at 9, said through a mouthful of chocolate chip. Oh, that's fun, Sarah said. Did he make it himself? Or was it delivery? Delivery, Maya chirped. Again, the words slipped out, coded in judgment. I looked up from my laptop. Sarah just smiled at the kids, a bright plastic thing. A week later, they were in the living room building a Lego tower. I was trying to read on the couch. Does your dad help you with your homework when you're there? Sarah asked, sitting on the floor with them. Sometimes, Josh said, concentrating on a tricky piece. But he lets us play video games first. For how long? She pressed. Does he set a timer? No, Josh said. We just play until he says stop. Sarah said. The sound hung in the air, heavy and critical. I folded the corner of my page, my concentration shot. It felt wrong, like watching someone read another person's diary. It kept escalating. The questions got sharper, more invasive, digging for dirt. She was a goddamn prosecutor, and these poor kids were on the stand with no idea they were testifying against their own father. Is the house clean when you get there? Does your dad ever yell? Does he have friends over? After you go to bed? I tried to push back gently. Honey, maybe we should let them just play, I said one afternoon, trying to sound casual. They don't need a 20-question session every time they come over. She shot me a look that could curdle milk. I'm just making conversation, Alex. I'm trying to make sure they're okay. Lena is worried sick. They seem fine, I said. They have a dad who loves them. He's a liar and a cheat, she hissed, keeping her voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. That's what he is. The final straw, the moment the whole ugly thing cracked wide open, was a Friday night. Sarah had invited Josh and Maya for a movie night with Leo. Mark was supposed to pick them up at 9. We were all on the floor with bowls of popcorn watching some animated movie about a heroic space hamster. It was a normal, happy scene. The kids were laughing, Leo was spilling popcorn everywhere, and for a minute I let myself forget. I thought maybe Sarah had finally backed off. I was an idiot. Halfway through the movie, during a quiet part, Sarah paused the TV. The sudden silence was jarring. The kids looked at her, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. Hey guys, she said, her voice so unnervingly calm. I have a question for you, and I want you to be really honest. Josh and Maya nodded, their eyes wide. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I just knew this was it. Do you have more fun when you're here with Leo and me? She started, then turned her head slightly. Or when you're at your dad's house? She paused, letting the question sink in. Then she delivered the killing blow. Who do you like spending time with more? Me and your mom or your dad? The air went out of the room. Josh's face crumpled in confusion. Maya looked like she was about to cry. They were just kids being asked to choose a side in a war they didn't even understand. My son Leo just looked back and forth between them, sensing the sudden, awful tension. I moved before I even thought. I snatched the remote from her hand and hit play. The space hamster was back on screen, squeaking about galactic justice. The noise was a welcome shield. Okay, who wants more popcorn? I said, my voice unnaturally loud and cheerful. I stood up, grabbing the empty bowls, not looking at my wife. Let's get a refill. I herded a confused Leo and a shell-shocked Josh and Maya into the kitchen. I didn't say a word to Sarah. I didn't have to. The look on my face must have been enough. I busied myself at the counter, my back to the living room, my hands shaking as I scooped out more popcorn. I could feel her eyes burning into my spine. When Mark's headlights cut across the front window at 9 o'clock sharp, I practically threw the kids' coats at them. Did you guys have a good time? Mark asked from the doorway, giving me a small, appreciative smile. They were great, I said, forcing a grin that felt like cracking plaster. I hugged Josh and Maya, holding them for an extra second. See you guys soon. I shut the door behind them. The deadbolt slid home with a heavy thunk times that echoed in the sudden suffocating silence of the house. Leo had already gone upstairs to his room. It was just the two of us. I turned around slowly. Sarah was standing in the archway to the living room, her arms crossed, her jaw set. The soft, concerned mask she wore for the children was gone. All that was left was cold, stubborn defiance. The opening bell for a fight I never wanted had just rung. What the hell was that? The words were out before I'd even fully turned to face her. My voice was low tight. was what she shot back her face, a mask of indignation. I was just talking to the kids. That wasn't talking, Sarah. That was a deposition. You put 2 children on a witness stand in their own damn living room and asked them to choose between their parents. Her arms tightened across her chest. I was worried about them. Bullshit. You weren't worried you were fishing. You've been fishing for weeks. I took a step closer, my anger finally boiling over. The pizza, the homework, the video games, all of it. You've been running a covert Alexander out of our kitchen. For Lena. The mention of her friend's name cracked the facade. Her defiant glare faltered. Lena is my best friend. She's going through hell. She asked me to keep an eye out, that's all. Keep an eye out for what? For proof that Mark is a monster? I threw my hands up in disgust. He's not a monster, Sarah. He's a guy who works 50 hours a week, and on his nights off, he orders his kids pizza and lets them play video games. My God, call the Hague. He cheated on her, she screamed the whisper fight over. He broke his vows and blew up his family. He doesn't deserve to have it easy. This isn't about him having it easy. It's about his kids. They're not ammunition for Lena's custody battle, and we are not her goddamn spies. I was pacing now the quiet house, feeling like a pressure cooker. Being a shitty husband doesn't automatically make him a shitty father. You, of all people, should know that's a line you don't cross. I'm helping her protect them, she insisted, her voice trembling with righteous fury. She needs to build a case. He has more money, better lawyers. She needs anything she can get to show he's an unstable influence. An unstable influence, I stopped, incredulous. By ordering dominoes, you're not helping her, Sarah. You're her pawn. She's using you to hurt him, and she's using his own children to do it. And you're letting her right here in our house. You've always taken his side, she spat, her eyes welling with tears of frustration. From the very beginning. There are no sides, there are just 2 kids who are being emotionally manipulated by the adults who are supposed to protect them, and tonight you were one of them. The accusation hung in the air between us, ugly and undeniable. She stared at me, her mouth a thin, hard line. There was no apology in her eyes. No regret. Just the cold, hard certainty of a zealot. We were at a stalemate, a deep, jagged canyon opening up between us on the living room rug. You need to stop, I said, my voice dropping again, exhausted. It ends tonight. No more questions. No more debriefings. She just shook her head slowly. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was one of pure, stubborn conviction. I have to help her, Alex. She's my friend. I'm not going to abandon her. Even if it costs us everything, I pressed, my stomach clenching. Have you thought this through? This is called parental alienation, Sarah. It's a legal term. What do you think happens when Mark finds out his kids are being interrogated every time they come over? He'll stop letting them come. He'll tell Josh and Maya they can't play with Leo anymore. Or worse, his lawyer gets wind of this and we get dragged into their divorce. Subpoenas, depositions. You think that's going to be fun? He won't find out, she said, but her voice lacked its earlier fire. A flicker of doubt. He will, I said, seizing on it. Kids talk. And what you did tonight, asking them to choose, that's a scar, Sarah. That's the kind of thing they tell a therapist about one day. Or their dad tonight when he's tucking them in. You've put our family, our son, directly in the blast radius of their war. She turned away from me, walking to the window and staring out into the dark, her back rigid. It was a dismissal. The conversation was over. She was putting her loyalty to Lena above me, above our family, above common decency. She was convinced she was on the side of the angels, and nothing I said could break the spell. She eventually walked past me without a word and went upstairs. I heard our bedroom door click shut. I stood alone in the silent house, the remnants of popcorn and a cheerful kids' movie mocking me from the TV screen. The rage had cooled, leaving behind a cold, heavy residue. she wasn't going to stop. She was going to be more careful, more subtle, but she wasn't going to stop. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't change her mind. So I had to go around her. I looked out the same window she had across the manicured lawn to Mark's house. A single light was on in the kitchen. He was probably cleaning up, getting the kids' backpacks ready for Monday. Being a father. My loyalty wasn't to Lena's scorched earth campaign. It wasn't even to Mark. It was to those kids. And it was to protecting my own family from the shrapnel that was about to fly. Sarah had made her choice siding with the war. I was siding with the peace. Even if I had to blow up our own, I walked to the front door, slipping on the shoes I'd kicked off hours earlier. The air outside was cool and clean. I didn't hesitate. I walked down our porch steps across the damp grass that separated our two little kingdoms and straight up Mark's driveway. The light in his kitchen window cast a warm, lonely square onto the lawn. I could see his silhouette moving inside. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, a heavy, determined rhythm against my ribs. Then I raised my hand and knocked on his door.
Story 4.
It was one of those parties where the music felt louder than the conversations, where laughter bounced across the room, and everyone seemed eager to outshine one another with energy and charm. I arrived with my wife, Clara, expecting a night of fun, casual dancing, and maybe a few good memories. We came early, grabbed drinks, and mingled with a few friends. At first, everything felt normal until I noticed how often she glanced across the room at the same man, someone I had seen before but never really noticed. He wasn't particularly impressive in size, yet there was something unsettling about the confidence in the way he leaned against the wall, smirking each time Clara looked his way. The moment I understood what was happening felt unreal. Clara, laughing and moving through the crowd, walked straight toward him and offered her hand. He took it eagerly, and I stood frozen as she danced with him, twirling, laughing, leaning in closer than any friend ever should. My chest tightened. It wasn't anger. It was disbelief, hurt, and a stunned curiosity about how she could do this in front of me, her husband. Others noticed too. Some exchanged awkward glances, while others tried not to stare. I stayed calm. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to shout or humiliate her. I wanted to see what would happen if I remained composed. That's when I made my move. Not in anger, but with precision. I approached a woman standing alone, watching the crowd, and politely extended my hand. "Care to dance?" I asked, my voice steady and confident. She looked surprised, then smiled. As we stepped onto the floor, the energy shifted. People began to notice. Where Clara had been the center of attention, eyes slowly turned toward me. I led my partner smoothly, moving in time with the music. The effect was immediate. Whispers spread. "Did you see that? He's dancing with someone else now." Clara's smile faltered, her confidence slipping as she glanced in my direction. I danced casually, but my eyes never left her. She seemed to realize, little by little, that this wasn't jealousy. It wasn't revenge. It was a quiet display of control and composure. Each time the other man tried to wink or gesture, I simply strengthened my presence on the floor. The crowd naturally gravitated toward calm confidence. Clara's grip tightened briefly around his arm, then loosened, uncertainty settling in. I noticed the shift around us. People were watching, waiting, sensing something meaningful unfolding, and Clara felt it too. The music changed, and the floor grew more crowded. I spun my partner with ease, and a soft gasp rippled through the crowd at the grace of the move. The man Clara danced with attempted a flashier flourish, but it was clear. He couldn't match the steady confidence coming from me. Her eyes met mine. I didn't smile or mock her. I simply let her see, without words, that I had taken control of the room, of the moment, and most importantly, of myself. She felt it. Everyone felt it. The mood shifted from lighthearted fun to intense curiosity, like they were witnessing a slow, elegant standoff. Then came the turning point. The man beside Clara stepped forward, trying to reclaim dominance in front of the crowd. I moved closer, not confrontational, just present. Clara froze. He noticed too, his smirk fading. The crowd sensed the tension, their murmurs growing louder. I didn't speak. I didn't threaten. I didn't need to. My calm, measured presence said everything. In that moment, Clara realized her choice hadn't gone unnoticed. It had been met with dignity, grace, and control she never expected from me. She stepped back, releasing his hand. For the first time that night, hesitation showed in her movements. The man's confidence cracked. I guided my partner through a slow, intentional turn, gliding past them as the room took notice and began to whisper. Clara's expression shifted. Shock, disbelief, and regret blended across her face. She had assumed I would laugh it off or, worse, cause a scene. Instead, I flipped the moment without raising my voice or creating any drama. I had reclaimed not only my dignity, but also the quiet power of presence she had long taken for granted. By the next song, the crowd's attention had completely shifted. I danced with ease and confidence, while Clara lingered near the edge of the floor, unsure where to stand or what to do. A friend tried pulling her back into the dance, but she hesitated, caught in the realization that everything had changed. People whispered about what they had witnessed. Some looked impressed, others stunned. And Clara stood still, unable to hide her surprise, or the dawning understanding that her choices carried consequences. Consequences that didn't need confrontation or anger to be felt. When the music ended, I returned to our table with my partner, smiling politely at those around us, calm as if nothing unusual had occurred. Clara followed shortly after, her face pale and tight. I didn't need to speak. The message had already been delivered through composure, confidence, and action. That night, she understood that even subtle disrespect in public never goes unnoticed, and that sometimes the strongest response isn't confrontation, but a quiet, graceful display of self-respect. By the end of the evening, the party had settled, but the tension lingered. People still whispered about the moment, about the shift in energy, about the calm man who took control without raising his voice. Clara never mentioned it. Not that night, not in the days that followed. But I saw it in her eyes. A quiet, undeniable respect. That night marked a turning point in our relationship. A subtle yet powerful reminder that composure, presence, and timing often speak louder than anger, confrontation, or humiliation. And in the silence that followed, I knew the lesson had been learned by her, by everyone, and most importantly, by me.
Story 5.
The first time I saw my husband Mark hold our daughter, the whole world just stopped. It was like a shutter clicked and the moment was frozen in amber. All the years of trying the doctors, the quiet disappointments, it all melted away. There was just him, a man completely undone by a tiny 7-pound miracle with a tuft of dark hair just like his. We named her Calla. It was the only name we'd ever seriously considered. Mark's mother, who passed away from cancer when he was 15, had loved calla lilies. He told me how she'd always kept a vase of them on the kitchen table, their elegant white heads, a permanent fixture of his childhood. The name felt right. It felt like a piece of her, a connection for the daughter she'd never get to meet. We were in our little bubble of bliss, a cocoon of sleepless nights and milky baby smells. After a couple of days, Mark made the round of announcement calls. He was glowing when he dialed his dad, Robert. "Hey, Dad, she's here," he beamed his voice, thick with emotion. I watched him from the hospital bed holding our tiny girl against my chest. He relayed the stats, time of birth, weight, length. Then he got to the best part. We named her Calla. There was a pause. Even from across the room, I could hear the tinny distant sound of his father's voice, but not the words. Mark's smile faltered just for a second. "Yeah, Calla," he repeated. Another pause. "No, it's C-A-L-L-A. Like the flower." His shoulders tensed. He turned away from me slightly, a reflexive habit he had when dealing with his family. "Okay, Dad." "Yeah, we'll talk soon. Love you." He hung up and forced a smile back onto his face, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. "What'd he say?" I asked, adjusting Calla in my arms. Mark shrugged, running a hand through his already messy hair. He just said it was an odd choice. Odd. His word. He looked down at our daughter, his expression softening again. "He doesn't get it. It's fine." But I knew it wasn't his dad he was talking about. It was his stepmother, Susan. Robert was just the mouthpiece. Susan had been in Mark's life for 20 years, but she was never Mom. She was a constant, simmering presence who resented the ghost of the woman she could never replace, a resentment that often spilled over onto the son, who was a living reminder of that woman. Mark had always been polite, had always shown up for holidays, but he'd kept a careful, measured distance. I knew she hated him for it. The first few months were a blur. Calla grew. She developed a gummy smile that could level a city block and a laugh that sounded like tiny bells. The oddness from the in-laws continued. A baby blanket arrived in the mail addressed to Mark and Elizabeth's new baby. No name. During a strained video call, Susan commented on a picture of Calla I had posted. "She's cute," she'd said, her smile tight. Though I never understood why people choose such unusual names these days. Mark just grunted and changed the subject. We tried to ignore it. We were new parents, high on love and low on sleep, and we didn't have the energy for drama. We had our perfect little girl, our Calla. That's all that mattered. Then on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 months later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Mark was working from his home office, and I was on the living room floor trying to coax a giggle out of Calla during tummy time. I scooped her up, her warm little body molding against my shoulder, and went to the door. It was Robert and Susan. My stomach dropped. They never visited unannounced. They lived 2 hours away and always insisted on a scheduled, almost formal invitation. "Susan Robert, what a surprise," I said, trying to inject some warmth into my voice. "We were in the area," Robert said a little too quickly. Susan just stared at me, her eyes flicking down to Calla and then back up, her expression unreadable. "Well, come in, come in." I stepped back and they entered. The air in the house immediately felt heavier, thicker. I called for Mark and he came out of the office, his face a mask of confusion that quickly morphed into weary resignation when he saw who was standing in our entryway. The small talk was excruciating. Robert asked Mark about work. I offered them drinks they didn't want. Susan accepted my offer to hold Calla, but she held her stiffly like she was a porcelain doll she was afraid of breaking. She didn't coo or smile at her. She just held her. We all migrated to the living room and sat in a tense, awkward silence. Finally, Robert cleared his throat. It was the signal. Susan looked up from Calla, her gaze landing squarely on Mark. Her face was a carefully constructed portrait of grievance. "Mark," she began, her voice quivering just enough to signal the performance had begun. "Your father and I have been doing a lot of talking." Mark waited, his posture rigid. "We didn't want to say anything at first," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "We wanted to give you time. But we simply cannot stay silent about how hurt we are." I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. "Heard about what, Susan?" I asked, keeping my tone level. She ignored me, her eyes still locked on my husband. "It was a terrible thing to do, Mark. Truly terrible." She finally looked at me, then back at him. To choose a name that is a constant, painful reminder. A reminder every single day that I am not her. Her voice cracked on the last word. She clutched Calla a little tighter. "Every time I hear you say it, every time I see it written down, it's a slap in the face. It tells me that I'll never be the real grandmother. That I'm just the replacement." Mark was completely white. He looked like he'd been punched in the gut, the air knocked clean out of him. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just stared at her, his eyes wide with a disbelieving sort of pain I'd never seen before. Susan took his silence as an invitation to press on, her voice rising with righteous indignation. "We are your parents. You are supposed to consider our feelings. You should have thought about how this would make times me times feel before you saddled this poor child with that name." The words hung in the air thick and suffocating. Saddled this poor child with that name. Something inside me snapped. A cold, quiet rage I hadn't felt since Calla was born. I stood up from the couch, my movements slow and deliberate. "Give me my daughter," I said. My voice was low, devoid of any warmth. Susan flinched her grip on Calla, tightening for a fraction of a second before she seemed to realize how it looked. She reluctantly passed my baby back into my arms. Calla stirred her tiny face, scrunching up before settling against my shoulder. The familiar weight of her was an anchor in the storm that had just broken in my living room. I looked at Mark. He was frozen, his face a mess of shock and a deep 20-year-old hurt. He looked like that 15-year-old boy again, the one who'd lost his mom and had this woman foisted upon him. Seeing him so broken, so silenced, lit the final fuse. I turned my gaze to Susan. "Her name is Calla," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "It's a beautiful name. It honors a beautiful woman who is gone. A woman who is Mark's mother and Calla's grandmother." Susan opened her mouth, a retort ready, but I didn't let her speak. "You don't get to be hurt by that. You don't get to be the victim here. For 20 years you have wanted Mark to erase his mother for your comfort, and he has been nothing but polite to you in the face of it. But that stops now." I took a step closer, my protective instinct screaming. "This is our daughter. Not a prop in your drama. You can't live in this fantasy world where Mark's mother didn't exist. She did. And she is a part of this family. She is a part of Calla." My voice was shaking, but not from fear. "You do not get a say in our child's name. You do not get to come into our home unannounced and tell my husband he was terrible for loving his own mother. You are Cala's grandmother, yes. But you are not his mom. And you need to accept that. The silence that followed was absolute. Susan's face had crumpled from righteous indignation into pure, venomous fury. Robert, who had been a silent statue, finally surged to his feet. How dare you, he boomed his face, turning a blotchy red. How dare you speak to my wife that way in your own home? After everything she's done for Mark. What has she done? Mark's voice, raw and cracked, cut his father off. He finally stood up, his eyes locked on Robert. Been there, physically, Dad. She's resented me since the day you got married. She's resented my mom. And now you're sitting here letting her attack my wife and my daughter over a name. She had a right to her feelings, Robert shot back. She doesn't have a right to our child, Mark said, his voice gaining strength. He walked over to the front door and opened it. I think you should go. Susan gasped, clutching her chest as if she'd been stabbed. After all this time, this is how you treat us, because of a name. You are cruel, Mark. Both of you are so unbelievably cruel. She started crying, then big theatrical sobs. We demand an apology. I just stared at her, rocking Cala gently. An apology. The audacity was breathtaking. Get out, Mark said, his voice flat and final. Robert shot us one last look of pure disgust, then guided his weeping wife out the door, slamming it behind them. The silence they left behind was deafening. I sank back onto the couch, my legs suddenly weak. Cala was still asleep on my shoulder, oblivious. I looked at Mark. He was leaning against the closed door, his head bowed, his shoulders shaking. I thought he was crying. I went to him, my heart aching, and put a hand on his back. He looked up, and his eyes were wet, but he was smiling. A shaky, broken, but genuine smile. Thank you, he whispered, his voice thick. Liz, thank you. I've wanted to say something like that to her for 20 years. I could never find the words. I always froze. He reached out and cut my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin. You didn't freeze. I'm sorry if I went too far, I said, the adrenaline starting to fade, replaced by a wave of queasy guilt. The things I'd said, they were true, but they were so harsh. It just came out. I saw your face and I... Don't you dare be sorry, he said fiercely, pulling me into a one-armed hug, careful of Cala between us. You weren't harsh. You were honest. You defended me. You defended our daughter. He kissed my forehead. You were perfect. His words were a balm, but a little seed of doubt remained. Had I just permanently fractured his family? The weeks that followed were silent. No calls. No texts. Not even a passive-aggressive email from Robert. It was peaceful, but an uneasy peace. Then a package arrived. A small flat box addressed to me and Mark. Inside was a silver picture frame engraved with the words, Our Granddaughter. Tucked into the frame wasn't a photo, but a gift certificate for a professional baby portrait studio. A note from Susan was attached. Thought this would be a lovely way to have a proper picture of the baby, it read. Perhaps we can put all this ugliness behind us and start fresh. For her sake. The baby. She still wouldn't use her name. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a final subtle attempt to win. To erase Cala and replace it with granddaughter. I looked at the frame. I looked at the note. Mark read it over my shoulder and sighed a long, tired sound. Just throw it out, he said. It's not worth it. But it was. I had an idea. It wasn't about being cruel. It wasn't about revenge. It was about ending it for good. The next Saturday, I told Mark I was running some errands. I took the gift certificate. I also took the old, slightly faded photograph of Mark's mother that he kept on his nightstand, the one from her wedding day where she's laughing, her head thrown back in joy. I went to the portrait studio. I also went to a custom frame shop. A week later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, almost identical to the one they'd ambushed us on, I hung our new art piece in the living room right across from the couch where they had sat. It was a large, beautifully matted triptych. On the left was the restored, vibrant photo of Mark's mother looking timelessly beautiful. On the right was a photo of Mark and me from the day we brought Calla home, exhausted and utterly besotted. And in the center, and the largest frame of the three, was a gorgeous professional portrait of our daughter. She was awake, her dark eyes sparkling, her gummy smile on full display. Beneath her picture, I'd had a small, elegant brass plate engraved. It read, Calla, named in loving memory of her grandmother. When Mark came home and saw it, he just stopped and stared. He walked over to it, his fingers tracing the frame around his mother's face, then his daughter's. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just looked at it. Finally, he turned to me, his eyes shining. This is our family, he said, his voice full of a quiet, settled peace I hadn't heard in years. All of it. Later that night, I took a photo of the triptych hanging on our wall. I posted it online. I didn't tag anyone. The caption was simple. So proud of our beautiful girl Calla and the legacy she carries. We never got an apology. We didn't need one. The silence from them continued, but this time it wasn't uneasy. It was just quiet. We had taken back our story. We had honored our daughter. And in our home, surrounded by the faces of the people who truly loved her, there were no more ghosts.
Story 6. 5 years. That's a long time. It's long enough to build a life, to merge your friends, to know someone's coffee order by heart. For me and Claire, it was long enough to survive the break. A year ago, we hit a rough patch. We took a month apart to figure things out. I figured out I was miserable without her. She figured things out with Mark, a senior designer at her firm. She swore it was nothing, just a mistake born from confusion. A trauma bond over a stressful project, she'd called it. I believed her. Or I wanted to. We got back together. And for a year, things were good. Almost perfect. But the name Mark always hung in the air, a ghost at our dinner table. Hey babe, I said, walking in from the gym. You still on for dinner tonight? I was thinking that new Italian place. Claire was on the couch, laptop open, brow furrowed. She didn't look up. Oh hey. About that. I can't. I'm so sorry. My stomach dropped just a little. Everything okay? Yeah, it's just... work is insane. They just moved a deadline up on the Henderson project. I'm going to be chained to this desk all night. She finally looked at me, her face a mask of practiced exhaustion. We'll do it this weekend, I promise. Okay. I said, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. Need me to bring you anything? No, I'm good. I'll just order something in. Love you. Love you too. I spent the next 2 hours reheating leftover chili and scrolling aimlessly through my phone. It felt pathetic. A Friday night alone, picturing her drowning in architectural blueprints. Then I saw it. A post from Sarah, one of her work friends. A group photo, a big celebratory lunch. The caption read, "Finally celebrating the Henderson project wrap-up. So proud of this team." And there in the back of the shot, tucked into a corner booth, was Claire. She was laughing, her head tilted just so. Sitting across from her, leaning and so close their shoulders were almost touching, was Mark. My chili turned to ash in my mouth. It wasn't a meeting. It wasn't a last-minute deadline. It was a celebration. A victory lap. A lunch she lied about to have with him. My thumb hovered over her contact photo. Call her. Scream. Demand an explanation. But what was the point? She'd just spin another story. I'd seen it before. The denial, the deflections, the way she could twist words until I was the one apologizing for being suspicious. Not this time. I needed proof she couldn't talk her way out of. The restaurant in the photo was Café Monet, a trendy little spot downtown. I checked their Instagram page. Nothing. I checked the page of everyone tagged in Sarah's photo. And then I found it. Another picture posted by some junior designer I didn't know. It was a candid shot, a close-up. It was just the two of them. Claire and Mark. They were sharing a tiramisu, a single spoon halfway to her lips. His hand was resting on the table just inches from hers. The look on his face wasn't friendly. It wasn't professional. It was the same look he'd probably given her a year ago during the break. The look of a man who knew he was winning. My blood ran cold. The air in my apartment felt thick. Unbreathable. 5 years. All the promises, all the I love yous, all the plans we'd made. How much of it was real? The insecurity that had been a quiet hum in the back of my mind for a year was now a screaming siren. I grabbed my keys. My hands were shaking so hard. It took me 2 tries to get the key in the ignition. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to see her face when she saw the picture. I had to watch the lies fall apart in real time. The 20-minute drive to her apartment felt like an eternity in a split second all at once. Every red light was a personal insult. Every slow driver a test of my sanity. I replayed the last year in my head. Every time she'd worked late. Every time she'd been vague about her plans. Every time she'd said, "Mark is just a friend, you have to trust me." Trust. The word tasted like poison. I pulled up across the street from her building. Her lights were on. I pictured her on the couch, maybe texting him, telling him what a great time she had. Telling him how she'd expertly handled me. The thought made me want to punch the steering wheel. I took a deep breath, the air rattling in my lungs. I unlocked my phone, the picture of her and Mark glowing on the screen. It was my only weapon, my only piece of undeniable truth. I put the car in park but left the engine running. This was it. There was no coming back from this. I was about to set fire to 5 years of my life. And God help me, I couldn't wait to watch it burn. I killed the engine. The silence was deafening. My own ragged breathing filled the car as I walked to her door, phone clutched in my hand like a rock. I didn't knock. I used my key. She was on the couch just as I'd pictured, phone glowing in her lap. She jumped when the door opened. "Hudson, God, you scared me. I told you I was working." I didn't say a word. I just walked over, held my phone out, and tilted the screen toward her. The picture of her and Mark sharing that deserted universe of intimacy between them. Her eyes flicked from the screen to my face. The mask of practiced exhaustion slipped, replaced by a flicker of pure panic. Oh. That. It was a team thing. Just a celebration for the Henderson project. This isn't the team, Claire. My voice was flat dead. This is you and him. After you lied to me. I didn't lie. She snapped, her voice rising. Plans changed. It was a last-minute thing. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're being paranoid. Paranoid. The word came out as a hollow laugh. I looked around the apartment we had practically shared for 5 years. Her things, my things, our things. It all felt like a movie set. So you canceling on me and having lunch with the man you cheated on me with is just a coincidence. It wasn't like that. You're twisting this to fit your narrative because you've never trusted me since the break. She was actually shouting now, trying to flip it, make it my fault, my insecurity, my paranoia. It was her signature move. But the picture on my phone was an anchor holding me to reality. I wouldn't be gaslit again. I just stared at her, letting her words hang in the air and rot. I watched her face crumble when she realized it wasn't working. "I'm done," I said. It was the quietest thing I'd said all night, but it landed like a bomb. I turned and walked out, leaving my key on the little table by the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it softly behind me, the final click echoing like a gunshot. The next morning, I woke up to a world of digital silence. Her contact photo on my phone was a gray anonymous silhouette. My last text, a single blue checkmark. Delivered but not read. I went to Instagram. User not found. Facebook the same. Blocked. Wiped clean from her digital life as if the last 5 years were a corrupted file. A cold, sick dread pooled in my stomach. I grabbed my laptop and logged into an old forgotten gaming account on Facebook. I searched her name. Her profile popped right up, public and proud. And there it was, posted 2 hours ago. A new profile picture of her. And Mark smiling. And right below it, the relationship status she'd always refused to use with me. In a relationship with Mark Peterson. I dry heaved into the toilet. The betrayal was so absolute, so ruthlessly efficient, it felt like a physical assault. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just sat in the dark, scrolling through years of our photos, trying to pinpoint the exact moment I became a fool. After a week of this self-inflicted torture, I typed a desperate, pathetic plea into a Reddit relationship forum. The advice was swift and unanimous. Go scorched earth. No contact. It's the only way. It felt impossible, like amputating a limb. But they were right. I spent the next hour blocking her. Then I blocked Mark. Then Sarah. Then her sister. Her mom, her cousins, her 20 closest friends. A digital massacre. My friend Dave, bless his heart, went over to her place with 2 garbage bags of her stuff and came back with a box of mine. He didn't say a word, just put a beer in my hand. 2 days later, a message request popped up on Instagram from a blank profile. No picture, 0 posts. It was her. This is the cruelest, ugliest way you could have possibly handled this. You have no idea the damage you're doing. I screenshotted it, sent it to Dave with the caption, LOL, and then blocked the account without a reply. It was the hardest and best thing I'd ever done. Months passed. The silence worked its magic. The gaping wound in my chest slowly began to scar over. I started working out again. I saw my friends. I started to feel like myself. Then my dad got sick. It was fast. A sudden, brutal cancer that took him from us in 6 weeks. The world stopped. The grief was a fog, thick and choking. In the middle of funeral arrangements and sitting with my weeping mother, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister. It was a screenshot. A message from Claire to my mom. Dearest Carol, I was so devastated to hear about Richard. He was such a wonderful man. I know you must be going through hell. I'd love to come to the service to pay my respects and offer my support. Mark would be happy to come with me if that's okay. We just want to be there for you. The audacity. The sheer predatory nerve of it. Using my father's death, my mother's grief as a crowbar to pry her way back into my life. With him. For support. Rage cold and pure cut through my grief. This wasn't a showdown. This was a pest control problem. I called an emergency family meeting with my mom and sister. She is not to be acknowledged. I said, my voice shaking with a control I didn't feel. If she messages you again, you don't reply. If you see her at the funeral home, you look right through her. She doesn't exist. They agreed instantly, their own shock and disgust overriding their grief for a moment. I then texted my 5 closest friends, the ones serving as pallbearers. I sent them the screenshot and a simple instruction. If you see this woman or her boyfriend, you are my personal security. They are not to get within 50 feet of me or my family. No scenes. Just a wall. She never showed. Maybe someone warned her. Maybe she lost her nerve. The thought of her being silently, politely, but firmly turned away by my friends at my father's funeral was a small, grim comfort. A few weeks later, Dave sent me a YouTube link. The title was something like, "Girlfriend cheats, lies, then tries to crash ex's dad's funeral." It was one of those Reddit story narration channels. Someone had taken my post and turned it into a video. It had 2,000,000 views. Apparently, one of her distant cousins saw it, recognized the story, and shared it in the extended family group chat. From there, it went nuclear. My phone lit up with messages from numbers I didn't recognize, her friends. "You're a monster for airing her dirty laundry like that. She made a mistake, you didn't have to ruin her reputation. This smear campaign is pathetic." I read them, a strange sense of calm washing over me. They were just words from a world I no longer lived in. I blocked them all. A year to the day after I walked out of her apartment, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line was just my name. It was a novel. A long, rambling, self-serving apology. She wrote about her fear of commitment, how our love was so real it scared her. She wrote about how Mark was pressuring her to move and how he didn't really get her. How he wasn't as smart or as funny as I was. It was a masterclass in non-apology, blaming everything but herself. A year ago, I would have sold my soul to receive that email. I would have read it and wept the validation as soothing balm on my shattered ego. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was sitting on a couch beside a woman named Anna, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched some stupid movie. She was kind and honest, and she made me laugh. She knew my story. She'd held my hand through the grief of losing my dad. She was real. I read Claire's pathetic, desperate words, felt the ghost of a pain I used to know, and then I felt nothing. A complete and total indifference. It was like reading a weather report from a city I'd never visit again. I hit delete. The email vanished. Anna looked up at me. "Everything okay?" I smiled, leaned over and kissed her. "Everything's perfect." Story 7.
The C-130's engines whined down and the ramp dropped onto the tarmac at Fort Bragg. A year in the sand gone. Just like that. I slung my duffel over my shoulder and walked into the hangar, scanning the crowd of families. Then I saw her. Sarah. My wife. She was backlit by the North Carolina sun, looking like an angel in a white sundress. She ran to me and I dropped my gear, catching her in my arms. I buried my face in her hair. She smelled like home. Like freshly cut grass and the lavender soap she always used. I missed you so much, she whispered into my chest. It's over, I said. I'm home. For good. The first week was a blur of perfect moments. We slept in, made love, and talked for hours about the future. The farm was thriving, the house was immaculate. My life was a blueprint I'd drawn myself, and everything was exactly where it should be. We were going to start trying for a baby right now. The first crack in the foundation appeared on a Tuesday. I was looking for a spare charging cable in the junk drawer in the kitchen. Underneath a tangle of old cords and dead batteries was her old phone, the one she said had shattered when she dropped it 6 months ago. Except it wasn't shattered. A long crack spiderwebbed across the screen, but it was intact. Curiosity is a bastard. I plugged it in. The screen lit up. A passcode. I tried her birthday. No luck. I tried our anniversary. Nothing. Then I tried 1, 2, 3, 4. It opened. Her texts were still there. A 6-month-long conversation with a contact named Ryder. I started at the beginning. Asterisk. Ryder fence posts are in. Head in. Out. Asterisk. Asterisk. Sarah already. Stay. Have a beer with me. Asterisk. He was the handyman she'd hired to fix up the back 40 while I was gone. The cowboy, she'd called him. A good old boy married with a baby on the way. Just a friendly guy. I kept scrolling. The text went from friendly to flirty. Flirty to filthy. Asterisk. Ryder. Can't stop thinking about you. Asterisk. Asterisk. Sarah, then come back over. He's thousands of miles away. Asterisk. My thumb swiped faster, a slick of sweat on the screen. The words blurred into a single cohesive nightmare. I saw their first kiss described in detail. Their first time in my truck. Then in my barn. Then in my bed. Asterisk. Sarah, I love you. I've never felt this way about anyone. Asterisk. Asterisk. Ryder, I love you too. More than her. Asterisk. Her. His pregnant wife. Then I saw the text that stopped my heart. Asterisk. Sarah. Last night was amazing. I love feeling you inside me with nothing between us. Asterisk. Unprotected. While we were planning to start a family, my family, the bile rose in my throat. I ran to the bathroom and heaved into the toilet until there was nothing left. I sat on the cold tile, the phone still clutched in my hand. They had planned a future. He was going to leave his wife after the baby was born. She was going to leave me the day I got home. They'd sell his place and live here. On my farm. In my house. The front door opened. Alan, honey, I'm home. I splashed water on my face and shoved the phone deep into my pocket. I walked out of the bathroom and forced a smile. My military training kicked in. Compartmentalize, suppress, survive. Hey, I said, my voice steady. How was your day? She kissed me. It felt like poison. Great, I was thinking we could grill steaks tonight. Celebrate. Celebrate what? Just you being home, she said, beaming. Us. The next few weeks were a special kind of hell. I lived a double life. On the outside, I was the happy returning husband. I went to the gym, I worked on the farm, I smiled at dinner. On the inside, I was a ghost. At night, I'd lie next to her staring at the ceiling, replaying their texts in my head. Some nights, I'd go to my gun safe, open it, and just look at my service pistol. The thought was a cool, dark comfort. A final way out. But I'd slam the safe shut, my whole body shaking. She never noticed a thing. She'd curl up against me, talking about baby names. Finn for a boy, Olivia for a girl. She wanted to paint the spare bedroom a soft yellow. My stoicism started to fray. One afternoon, I was in the workshop trying to fix a generator. My hands were trembling, my breath caught in my chest. The walls felt like they were closing in. I slid down the wall, gasping for air, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The door creaked open. It was Sarah. Alan, oh my God, what's wrong? She knelt beside me. I couldn't speak. I could only shake my head. Is it your new pre-workout stuff? She asked, her voice dripping with concern. I told you that stuff was too strong. You need to be more careful. She helped me up, leading me into the house like a child, completely oblivious. She saw a panic attack and blamed it on creatine. It wasn't a lack of perception. It was a complete refusal to see. That was it. That was the moment I went from victim to soldier. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Then I hired a private investigator, an old army buddy who owed me a favor. I just need to know if it's still happening, I told him. Confirmation. 2 days later, Sarah kissed me goodbye. I'm meeting Stephanie for lunch, and then we're going shopping. I'll be back around 5. Love you. Love you too, I said. The words tasted like ash. I spent the afternoon cleaning my rifles, taking them apart, oiling the pieces, putting them back together. A calm, methodical task. A focus for the rage. My phone buzzed. A text from the PI. It was a picture. Grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Sarah getting out of her car in a Target parking lot. She was smiling, walking toward a dusty Ford F-250. Ryder's truck. He was leaning against the driver's side door, grinning back at her. The picture was time-stamped 5 minutes ago. My stomach twisted into a knot of ice. She was with him. Right now. My phone buzzed again. A new text. From Sarah. Asterisk, having so much fun with Steph, we're trying on dresses. Wish you were here, miss you already, XOXO asterisk. I stared at the 2 messages on my screen, stacked one on top of the other. A picture of my wife meeting her lover. A lie about shopping with a friend. The world didn't explode. It just went silent and sharp like the moment after a flashbang goes off. The ringing in my ears stopped. The fog in my head cleared. There was only the mission. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and opened the junk drawer. I took out her old phone, the cracked repository of my own personal hell, and plugged it in. I photographed the screen with my phone, capturing the worst of it. The I love yous. The plans for my house. The text about unprotected sex. I saved the PI's picture. Then I went on Facebook. It took me less than 5 minutes to find Ryder's profile. His wife's name was Chloe. Her profile picture was a maternity shot, her hands cradling a perfect round belly. Her public posts were full of excitement about their baby boy. My finger hovered over her name. I copied the link to her profile. Then I sat in my armchair in the living room and waited. It was the easiest thing I'd done in months. There was no rage, no sorrow, just a cold, hard sense of purpose. An objective to be taken. The front door opened a little after 5. I'm home, she sang, dropping shopping bags by the door. You would not believe the sale they had at Belk. She came over and leaned down to kiss me. I turned my head so her lips landed on my cheek. She frowned. Everything okay? Where were you today, Sarah? I asked. My voice was flat, devoid of everything. I told you with Stephanie. Shopping. The lie came so easily. So practiced. That's funny, I said, not looking at her. Because Stephanie posted a picture of her and her kids at the zoo this afternoon. She tagged her mom. Said they were spending the whole day together. The air in the room changed. The pressure dropped. Oh, well, we just went for a bit in the morning and then... She started the lies already tangling. I held up my phone, showing her the PI's photo. Her smiling face walking toward Ryder's truck. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. You're still seeing him, I said. It wasn't a question. Alan, it's not what it looks like. We just met for coffee to talk? For closure? Closure, I repeated the word. It tasted like dirt. While you were texting me about trying on dresses, I didn't want you to worry. I knew how it would look, she cried, the tears already starting to well. It meant nothing, I swear. It's over. I chose you. I watched her a specimen under glass. The performance was flawless. The panicked regret, the pleading eyes. It was all a lie. I had read the script. I knew how the story was supposed to end. With me gone. I see, I said. I picked up my phone. I had already drafted the message. I created a new group text. I added Sarah, her mom, her dad, her sister Emily, and Chloe Ryder's pregnant wife. I attached the 5 screenshots. The photo from the parking lot. The text about loving him more than me. The plan to take my farm. The one about having unprotected sex. And the picture of her lying texts from this afternoon. I didn't add a single word of my own. I just hit send. A moment of silence hung in the air. Then the buzz. Her phone on the entryway table. My phone in my hand. Her face went from pale to sheet white as she grabbed her phone. Her eyes darted across the screen, the realization dawning. Her phone began to ring. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. She ignored it. It rang again. Her father. What did you do? She whispered, her voice trembling with a fury that had nothing to do with remorse. What did you do? I told the truth, I said, standing up. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. You sent that to Chloe. Are you insane? She's pregnant. And you were sleeping with her husband. Unprotected. Did you think about her then? She collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. It was just a fling. Alan A. Mistake. We can fix this. I can fix this. My phone rang. It was her father. I put it on speaker. Alan, what the hell is this? You're airing our dirty laundry to everyone, he boomed. Your daughter's been having an affair for 6 months, Bill. I thought you should know. For Christ's sake, son, you were gone a year. What did you expect? A woman has needs, he yelled. You've always been so... distant. You can't just shut down and expect her to wait around forever. I heard her mother in the background. This is your fault, Alan. You pushed her to this. I looked at Sarah. She wasn't protesting. She was just sitting there, letting them defend her. Letting them blame me. I clicked the phone off and dropped it on the table. Get your things, I said. I want you out, tonight. The divorce was filed the next day. The battle lines were drawn. Her family treated me like a leper. My friends, the ones who had been there when I put on the uniform and when I took it off, circled the wagons. They brought me beer and takeout, sat with me in silence on the porch, and never once told me I should have seen it coming. Sarah sent me desperate texts. Asterisk. Please. Let's go to counseling. I'll do anything to make this right. I still love you. Asterisk. It was all noise. 2 weeks after the confrontation, my PI sent me one final email free of charge. It was a screenshot of Sarah's updated LinkedIn profile and a confirmation of a submitted application. A job in Austin, Texas, Ryder's hometown. She was pleading for our marriage with one hand and planning her escape with the other. The divorce was brutally, blessedly fast. She didn't fight for the house or the farm. She couldn't. It was all mine before she ever came into the picture. She took her car, her clothes, and the life she had built on lies, and she was gone. I heard through the grapevine that Ryder's wife had the baby, a healthy boy, and filed for divorce the following week, moving back to her parents' house. The first few months alone were quiet. The kind of quiet that buzzes. I'd walk the property, I'd cleared stand in the house I'd built, and feel like a ghost. I had been dismantled bolt by bolt down to the concrete slab of my foundation. There were nights the gun safe still called to me, a dark whisper in the silence. But one morning I woke up and the first thing I thought about wasn't her. It was the split rail fence that needed mending by the creek. I got up, made coffee, and went to work. My hands felt steady. The sun on my back felt warm. I had been so focused on being the rock, the stoic soldier, the self-sufficient man. I thought vulnerability was a liability, a weakness to be trained out of you. I was wrong. Vulnerability is what's left when the bullshit is burned away. It's the foundation. Faith, my friends, my own two hands, that's what I rebuilt on. I don't know what happened to her or to him, and I don't care. Their story is over. Mine is just beginning again. The blueprint of my life was shattered, but the land is still here. And for the first time in a long time, I'm free to build whatever I want.
Story 8. I'm 31M. She's 29F. We've been together just over 3 years, living together for 2. We share an apartment. Split bills unevenly because I make more. And yes, her credit is trash, which is why most things are under my name. At least, they were. I reminded her I paid most of the rent. That I helped her when she was between jobs. That I'd rearranged my life around us. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. Don't make this about money, she snapped. My parents just want the best for me. And honestly, I kind of get it. That's when I stopped talking. I felt something click off. Not anger. Not sadness. Just clarity. Like a switch flipped, and suddenly I could see the room for what it was. I looked at her and said, calm as anything. Go ahead. She frowned. Go ahead with what? With listening to them. If they think you can do better, you should. She laughed, short and dismissive. Wow. Dramatic much? She went back to her phone. Conversation over. That was it for her. That night, she fell asleep thinking she'd won. Thinking I'd sulk for a few days, and then things would go back to normal. She had no idea that was the moment I decided I was done. I didn't do anything dramatic that night. No yelling. No packing bags in a rage. I kissed her on the forehead like always, turned off the light, and lay there staring at the ceiling while she fell asleep within minutes. That's when I started making a list in my head. Not the emotional kind. The practical one. The lease. The utilities. The credit card she used for emergencies. The car insurance. The streaming accounts. The internet. Funny how many things quietly sat under my name because, at some point, I was being supportive. Around 2 a.m., while she was snoring softly beside me, I slid out of bed and grabbed my laptop from the living room. I didn't rush. I didn't feel shaky. I felt focused. First thing I checked was the lease. 6 months earlier, she'd asked if we could put it solely in her name so she could build credit and feel more like an equal. I'd agreed because I trusted her. Turns out that was the cleanest decision I'd made in years. Legally, the apartment was hers. Next was the credit card. The one I opened when she maxed out her old one. I logged in, froze it, and scheduled a full cancellation. No warning. No grace period. Just done. Then the utilities. Internet and electricity were set to auto-pay from my account. I removed my payment info and updated the contact email to hers. Same with the renter's insurance. Same with the subscriptions she forgot she wasn't paying for. By 4 a.m., everything was disconnected from me except my phone plan, which I'd handle later. I packed quietly. Only my things. Clothes. Laptop. Documents. The watch my dad gave me. I left the furniture. I left the dishes. I even left the stupid throw pillows she insisted we buy. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was just removing myself. Before I left, I stood in the doorway and looked at her one last time. She was curled up on my side of the bed, peaceful, secure, convinced she had the upper hand. I didn't leave a note. I locked the door behind me and checked into a cheap hotel across town just as the sun started coming up. When I finally turned my phone back on later that morning, there were already 6 missed calls. All from her. I didn't answer. She still thought this was an argument. She didn't realize it was an ending. By noon, the missed calls had turned into texts. At first they were casual, almost bored. Where did you go? Are you seriously ignoring me? This isn't funny. I left my phone face down on the hotel nightstand and took a shower. Long. Hot, unhurried. For the first time in months, there was no tension in my shoulders. No low-grade anxiety about saying the wrong thing later. When I checked again, the tone had shifted. Why is my card declining? Did you change something with the internet? The power company just emailed me. What did you do? I imagined her pacing the apartment, phone in hand, confusion turning into irritation. She hates not being in control. Always has. She likes decisions when they're hers, surprises only when they benefit her. I still didn't respond. Around 3 p.m., she finally called again. I answered that one. Where the hell are you? She snapped the second I said hello. I moved out, I said. A pause. Then a sharp laugh. You're joking. No. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, stop. This isn't funny. You're mad, I get it. Come home and we'll talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said. Your parents don't approve. You agree with them. So I stepped out of the way. Her voice hardened. You don't get to just leave. We live together. You do. I corrected. The lease is in your name. Silence. You could almost hear the math happening in her head. Why is my credit card shut off? She demanded. Because it was mine. You can't do that, she said. That's manipulative. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. The way accountability always sounded like abuse when it landed on her. I didn't manipulate anything, I said. I just stopped paying for a life I'm not welcome in. She switched tactics instantly. So you're just abandoning me? After everything? Over one comment? It wasn't one comment, I said. It was honesty. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. My parents say stuff like that all the time. You're supposed to fight for us. That was the moment. The exact moment. I realized she didn't see me as a partner. I was a position. A role. Something that was supposed to perform and prove its worth indefinitely. I'm done fighting, I said. You can do better, remember? She hung up on me. That night, she posted a vague Instagram story about knowing your worth and men who can't handle strong women. I ordered room service and slept better than I had in years. She still thought this was about pride. She hadn't even reached the consequences yet. The second day was when the panic set in. I woke up to 23 missed calls, most of them from numbers I didn't recognize at first. Then I saw the names. Her mom. Her dad. Her older brother. That made me sit up. She hadn't called them to smooth things over. She'd called them to escalate. I answered her father's call on the third try. Son, he said, not sounding friendly at all. We need to talk about what you did. I let him speak. I've learned that people who feel entitled to you will tell on themselves if you give them enough rope. You can't just abandon my daughter, he continued. She's in tears. Cards are declining. Bills are piling up. And she says you shut everything off out of spite. Out of spite. Right. I didn't abandon anyone, I said evenly. I moved out of an apartment that's legally hers and stopped paying for expenses that were legally mine. That's not how relationships work. Her mom cut in from the background, loud enough to hear. A real man doesn't punish a woman when his ego gets bruised. There it was. Ego. The word they always use when they don't want to acknowledge disrespect. She told me you don't approve of me, I said. That you think she can do better. A brief pause. Well, her dad said, clearing his throat. We just want what's best for her. Then this should work out perfectly, I replied. She's free to find it. Her brother jumped in next. You're being petty. You know she can't afford that place on her own. That one almost made me smile. So, I said, you agree she was relying on me. Silence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just stated facts. Facts make people uncomfortable when they've built a narrative around entitlement. Later that afternoon, she finally texted again. My parents are furious. Are you happy now? I stared at the message for a long time before replying. I'm calm, I wrote. That's different. Her response came instantly. You blindsided me. You could have talked to me like an adult. I almost replied with something sharp. Instead, I typed the truth. You talked. I listened. Then I acted. She didn't respond after that. At least not directly. That evening, my hotel room phone rang. Front desk. Sir, there's a family here asking for your room number, the clerk said carefully. They seem upset. I laughed under my breath. Don't give it to them, I said. I'll be down. I took my time putting on my jacket. Because when people show up uninvited, it's usually because the power they thought they had is already gone. They were all standing in the hotel lobby when I walked in. My girlfriend was sitting on one of the couches, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. Her mom stood behind her like a manager supervising an employee. Her dad paced near the front desk. Her brother leaned against a pillar, scrolling his phone like he was bored by the whole thing. The second she saw me, she stood up. There you are, she said, sharp, like I was late to something. We need to fix this. I didn't sit down. I didn't hug her. I didn't even step closer. Her mom spoke first. This has gone far enough. You've made your point. I wasn't making a point, I said. I made a decision. Her dad scoffed. You don't just walk away from a committed relationship because of a misunderstanding. I looked at my ex, really looked at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You told me your parents didn't approve of me, I said. You said you agreed. Where's the misunderstanding? She rolled her eyes, irritated. You're twisting it. They just want me to be with someone more. And you? I asked. She hesitated. Just half a second. But it was enough. I just think, she said slowly. If you really loved me, you'd want to prove them wrong. That was it. 3 years distilled into one sentence. Love, to her, was performance. Endless auditioning. Me jumping through hoops so she could feel validated by people who never respected me in the first place. Her brother laughed. See? That's reasonable. Step up. I nodded once. I did step up. I paid. I supported. I stayed quiet. And when I realized I was temporary to all of you, I stepped out. Her mom's voice went cold. So what, you're just done? You're leaving her with nothing? I smiled. But there was no warmth in it. No. I'm leaving her with exactly what she said she wanted. The chance to do better. My ex finally snapped. You're being cruel on purpose. No, I said. I'm being consistent. She took a step toward me. So that's it. You're not even going to try? I shook my head. You already decided my value. I'm just agreeing with you. For the first time since I walked in, no one had anything to say. I turned to the front desk, confirmed my checkout for the next morning, then looked back at them. I won't be coming back, I said. Please don't contact me again. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard her mom whisper, he's so immature. And I realized something comforting. People who lose control always confuse boundaries with immaturity. I slept peacefully that night. She went home to an apartment she suddenly couldn't afford. And this was only the beginning. The silence lasted about 12 hours. That's how long it took before reality started leaking through the cracks. I was halfway through breakfast at a diner near the hotel when my phone buzzed. A notification from the electric company confirming a past due balance had been transferred to the account holder. another from the internet provider, then one from the property management portal confirming a missed payment reminder. All her. She called again. I didn't answer. Then came the text. Not angry this time. Strategic. We need to be adults about this. You can't just leave me with all of this. I never said I wanted to break up. That last one almost worked. Almost. I finished my coffee, paid, and walked outside before replying. You said I wasn't enough, I typed. You don't get to renegotiate that now that it's inconvenient. Her response came slower this time. My parents didn't mean it like that. I stared at the words, then locked my phone and put it back in my pocket. I'd spent too long translating for her, explaining her intentions, softening her words so they didn't sound as bad as they were. Around noon, her brother tried again. Man, he said, forcing a laugh. This is getting blown way out of proportion. It's proportionate, I replied. You're just finally feeling it. She's freaking out, he said. She didn't think you'd actually leave. There it was. The truth slipped out without even realizing it. I know, I said. That's the problem. By the afternoon, mutual friends started reaching out. Carefully neutral messages. Hey, just checking in. She's really upset. Maybe you two just need space. Funny how space only becomes important when the person who gives the most finally takes some. That evening, I went back to the apartment one last time. Not to see her, but to grab the rest of my documents from the safe. She wasn't there. The place felt different. Smaller. Quieter. Like a stage after the audience leaves. On the kitchen counter was a stack of unopened mail. Bills. Notices. Things I used to handle without thinking. I took what was mine and left the rest untouched. As I locked the door, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Because guilt is what you feel when you've done something wrong. And all I'd done was stop pretending I was okay being someone's backup plan. The third day was when the story started changing without me doing anything at all. I woke up to a voicemail from her. The first one I actually listened to. Her voice was softer now. Strained. Like she'd been crying but didn't want to admit it. Hey. I'm not trying to fight. I just need to understand how you could do this so fast. 3 years doesn't just disappear overnight. I didn't call back. Because 3 years didn't disappear overnight. It dissolved slowly. Comment by comment. Eye roll by eye roll. Until there was nothing solid left to hold. Around noon, I got a text from a number I hadn't saved. It was her aunt. Apparently, this had turned into a family-wide situation. I think you're acting out of hurt, she wrote. But hurting her back won't fix anything. I stared at that message for a long time. People love to frame boundaries as punishment when they benefit from you having none. An hour later, the landlord called me. Not angry. Confused. Hey, he said. Your ex called saying you abandoned the apartment and stuck her with everything. I didn't abandon anything, I said. The lease is in her name. I moved out. He sighed. Yeah. That's what I told her. Apparently, She tried to imply I was still responsible for half the rent. Apparently, she'd learned very quickly how alone she actually was in that argument. That evening, she texted again. Longer this time. I didn't mean what I said the way you took it. My parents get in my head. You know that. You always said you loved me for who I was, not my family. Why is this suddenly a deal breaker? There it was. The rewrite. I typed, deleted, typed again. It's a deal breaker because you didn't defend me. I finally sent. You agreed with them. No immediate reply. When it came, it was shorter. I just needed you to fight for me. I read that sentence until it lost meaning. Fight who? Her parents? Her doubts? Her contempt? How many battles was I supposed to win just to be tolerated? I didn't respond. Later that night, a mutual friend called and said something that stuck with me. She really thought you'd cave, he admitted. She's never seen you walk away from anything. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money or pride or her parents. It was about precedent. I had always stayed. And this time I didn't. 2 days later, her whole family would show up at my doorstep. But at that moment, I finally understood why. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming because something they relied on had quietly removed itself. They showed up on the fourth morning. I knew something was off the second I opened my apartment door and saw 4 people standing in the hallway like they were about to stage an intervention. Her parents, her brother, and her. She looked exhausted. No makeup. Hair pulled back tight. Angry and scared in equal parts. Her mom spoke first, forcing a smile. We just want to talk. No, I said calmly. You want to fix. Her dad bristled. Don't be disrespectful. I leaned against the doorframe. You're on my time now. Say what you came to say. My ex stepped forward. This has gone too far. I can't pay rent this month. My card is maxed. The utilities are piling up. This isn't fair. There it is, I said. That's the issue. Her brother scoffed. So you're really going to let her drown to prove a point? I shook my head. I'm not letting anything happen. I just stopped preventing it. Her mom folded her arms. You always were selfish. That one didn't sting like she thought it would. Interesting, I replied. You had no problem with me paying for everything when you thought I wasn't good enough. Silence. Her dad cleared his throat. Look, we may have been blunt, but relationships require compromise. I compromised for 3 years, I said. You wanted me to compete for basic respect. I declined. My ex's voice cracked. So what? You just disappear? After everything? I looked at her, really looked. For the first time, I didn't feel pulled toward her at all. You told me I wasn't enough, I said. I believed you. That broke something in her. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she whispered. I know, I said gently. That's why I had to. Her mom opened her mouth to argue again. But her dad raised a hand, stopping her. He studied me for a long moment. You're serious, he said quietly. Yes. Another pause. Then he nodded once. Then I suppose this is done. They left shortly after. No apologies. No closure speech. Just the sound of footsteps fading down the hallway. I closed the door and felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd won, but because I finally stopped playing a game I was never meant to win. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. No dramatic texts. No surprise calls. Just a slow trickle of consequences I didn't have to participate in. A week later, I heard through a mutual friend that she'd moved back in with her parents temporarily. That the apartment was already listed again because she couldn't qualify on her own. That her parents were suddenly very invested in helping her restructure her finances. Funny how quickly opinions change when theory turns into responsibility. She messaged me one last time late one night. I miss how safe things felt with you. I stared at that sentence longer than any of the others. Safe. Not loved. Not respected. Safe. I typed back exactly once. Safety isn't supposed to come from someone you look down on. She didn't reply. That was the real ending. Not the fight. Not the move out. Not her family showing up. It was the moment I understood that I'd been valued for what I provided, not for who I was. And once you see that clearly, there's no going back to pretending it was love. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. Some people don't need walls. They just need distance. The funny thing is, I don't feel bitter. I feel relieved. Like I finally put down something heavy I didn't realize I was carrying. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what happened when I ran into her months later. After everything had settled. After the dust cleared. After life moved on without either of us waiting on the other. That part surprised me the most. I ran into her about 4 months later at a grocery store near my new place. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Same face, same posture. But something was missing. The confidence she used to wear like armor was gone. She looked smaller. Quieter. She froze when she saw me. "Hey," she said after a beat, forcing a smile. "Wow. I didn't expect to see you." "Yeah," I said. "Me neither." We stood there awkwardly between the produce and the dairy section like two strangers who shared a past life. She asked how I was. I told her I was good. Because I was. She told me she'd moved back home. That she was resetting. That things were complicated with her parents now. Apparently, having opinions is easier than having obligations. Then she said something that stuck with me. "I didn't realize how much you did until you weren't there anymore." I nodded. Not bitter. Not smug. Just neutral. "I know," I said. She waited. For reassurance, maybe. For me to soften it. For me to say it was okay. I didn't. After a long pause, she asked quietly, "Do you ever think we could have worked?" I thought about the kitchen. The fridge humming. Her voice saying she could do better. "No," I said honestly. "Because I would have kept shrinking, and you would have kept expecting more. That was the first time she didn't argue. We said goodbye. Polite. Final. I walked out with my groceries and felt something I hadn't expected: gratitude. Not for the breakup, but for the clarity it gave me. Sometimes people don't leave because they stop loving you. Sometimes they leave because they finally start respecting themselves. And once that happens, there's no lease, no credit card, no family opinion strong enough to make you move back in. Bye-bye. Story 9.
We're getting married. Chloe held up her left hand like it was the Holy Grail. The diamond was small but impossibly bright under our dining room chandelier. My mother gasped a fluttery theatrical sound, and my father beamed a proud booming laugh echoing off the walls. I just stared at my 19-year-old sister, at the ring on her finger, and at the man sitting next to her, his hand resting possessively on her thigh. Mark Anderson, 36 years old, her former AP history teacher. "Isn't it wonderful?" Mom cried, rushing over to hug Chloe, then Mark. "Congratulations, son," Dad said, clapping Mark on the shoulder. "Welcome to the family." Son. The word felt like a shard of glass in my throat. I looked at Mark's face, at the self-satisfied smile playing on his lips, the crow's feet crinkling at the corners of his eyes. He'd had those same crow's feet when he was grading Chloe's papers. When she was 16. Teresa, Chloe's voice was bubbly, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face when she saw mine. "Aren't you happy for me?" I pushed my chair back from the table. "Can I talk to you for a second, Chloe, in the kitchen?" Mark's smile tightened just a fraction. "Anything you need to say to Chloe, you can say in front of me, Teresa. We're a team now." I ignored him. "Chloe." Now, in the kitchen, I shut the door. The sounds of celebration were muffled. "What is wrong with you?" Chloe hissed, her arms crossed over her chest. "You're ruining my moment." "He's 36, Chloe. You're 19. It's just a number. We're in love." "He was your teacher," I said, my voice low and urgent. "He started texting you about your potential when you were a sophomore. He gave you extra credit for office hours no one else had. Don't you see what this is? I see that I'm in love with a wonderful, mature man, and my own sister is trying to destroy my happiness." She shot back, her eyes welling up. "You've always been jealous of me." The door opened. Mom stood there, her face a mask of disapproval. "Teresa, stop this. Chloe has found a good man with a stable job. He's a respected teacher. Why can't you just be happy for her?" "Because he groomed her, Mom. The power imbalance is insane." "Don't use that kind of language in this house," Dad said, appearing behind her. "You're being dramatic. Mark adores her. This is the best thing that could have happened to Chloe. Chloe, the golden child. The one who never messed up, who got straight A's, who is now marrying a respectable man. I was the screw-up who dropped out of college for a semester and worked at a bar to figure things out. My concerns didn't count. They were just the bitter ramblings of a failure. The next few months were a special kind of hell. I was dragged to cake tastings and dress fittings, a silent, disapproving ghost in a whirlwind of white tulle and buttercream. At the bridal shower, all of Mom's friends cooed about how lucky Chloe was to land such a mature, settled man. "He'll take such good care of her," they all said. No one mentioned that she hadn't even been able to legally drink champagne at her own engagement party. Every time I tried to talk to Chloe, she shut me down. Every time I tried to reason with my parents, they told me to get over my jealousy. I was completely alone watching a train wreck happen in slow motion, and everyone else was cheering it on, throwing confetti. The wedding day was bright and sunny, a perfect mockery of the storm in my gut. I stood in my hideous bridesmaid dress and watched my little sister, my baby sister, walk down the aisle toward a man old enough to be her father. As he slid the ring onto her finger, he caught my eye and gave a small, triumphant smirk. He'd won. That was it. That was the moment I realized fighting them was useless. Yelling and screaming wouldn't break through the delusion. I couldn't save her by force. I had to play a different game. At the reception, while everyone was dancing, I pulled Chloe into the coat closet. I pressed a small rectangular box into her hand. "What's this?" she asked, her voice slurring slightly from the champagne. "It's a phone. It's not on the family plan. Just mine. Only you and I have the number. Our parents had a strict no cell phone until you're married rule for her." A rule Mark had enthusiastically supported. She looked confused. "Why?" I grabbed her shoulders, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm done fighting you, Chloe. I love you. And no matter what happens, no matter where I am, you will always have a way to call me. No questions asked. No judgment. Ever. Do you understand?" She nodded slowly, tucking the box into her purse. A week later, I packed my bags. I told my parents I got a job offer in a city 5 hours away. They were relieved. The black sheep, the source of all the negativity, was finally leaving, letting their perfect little family get on with their perfect little life. The next year was quiet. I kept my conversations with Chloe light and breezy. I never asked about Mark. I never said, "I told you so." I just listened. I learned to read the spaces between her words. The way her voice got a little too bright when she talked about the new recipes she was trying, how she was always at home when I called. He'd convinced her to drop her community college classes to focus on making a home for them. She was becoming a ghost. I was her lifeline, and I had to be patient. I had to wait for her to be ready to grab it. Then one rainy Tuesday night, my phone rang. It was the secret phone. My heart hammered against my ribs. In a year, she'd never used it. I answered on the first ring. Chloe. Her voice was a tiny, terrified thread. "Tess. I'm here. What's wrong?" There was a shaky breath on the other end. He wants me to make a doctor's appointment." "Okay, for what?" I heard her swallow hard. "To get my implant removed. He says it's time. He wants to start trying for a baby." A cold, sharp rage, the kind I'd been swallowing for years, surged through me. "Chloe, listen to me," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Don't do anything. Don't make the appointment. I'm coming home. I'm getting in my car right now." The 5-hour drive felt like 5 minutes. I didn't stop for gas, coffee, or to piss. I just drove, fueled by a year of simmering rage. Before I even killed the engine in front of their perfect little suburban house, I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit record. I shoved it deep into the front pocket of my hoodie. I didn't bother knocking. The door was unlocked. They were in the living room. Chloe was curled on the couch, looking small and pale. Mark was standing over her, his voice low and placating. The predator soothing its prey. "It's the natural next step, sweetheart," he was saying. "A family is what we've always talked about." He saw me then. His face hardened, the charming teacher mask cracking to reveal the ugly thing underneath. "Teresa, this is a private conversation." "I'm not leaving," I said, planting my feet in the entryway. "Chloe, go pack a bag." Chloe looked from me to him, a deer trapped between a wolf and a speeding car. "She's not going anywhere with you," Mark sneered, taking a step towards me. "You've been poisoning her mind for a year with that little secret phone. Did you think I didn't know I'm not stupid?" My blood ran cold. "You knew." "Of course I knew." I let her have her little secret. It kept her docile. He looked over his shoulder at her. "But the games are over. You're a wife now, Chloe. It's time to be a wife." He turned back to me. "Now get out of my house." "It's her house too," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "And she doesn't want to have a baby with you." "She'll do what's best for our family," he hissed, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper as he closed the distance between us. "She'll do what I tell her to do." No, a small voice said from the couch. We both turned. Chloe was on her feet, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. No. I won't. Mark's face contorted with a rage that was terrifying in its suddenness. The mask didn't just crack, it shattered. He forgot about me for a second and turned on her. What did you just say to me? She said no, I snapped, stepping between them. You heard her. We're leaving. That's when he lost it. His control, his composure, everything he'd built his life on just evaporated. He wasn't a respected teacher anymore. He was just a bully who'd been told no. You, he spat at me, his finger jabbing at my face. You did this. You ruined everything. He grabbed my arm, trying to haul me toward the door. I wrenched it away. Don't touch me. His eyes were wild. He drew his hand back and swung. I saw it coming. A year of waiting for this, a lifetime of being underestimated, it all coiled into my gut and shot up my arm. I moved first. I wasn't a scared kid anymore. I was a woman who'd worked late-night bar shifts and knew how to handle trouble. I pivoted, and my fist connected with his jaw. It wasn't a movie punch. It was a messy, ugly crack of bone and cartilage. He staggered back his hand, flying to his face, a look of pure shock in his eyes. He stumbled over the coffee table and crashed onto the floor. The room was silent, except for his wheezing breath. Then a gasp. Chloe was staring her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. Not at me. At him. At the pathetic, bleeding man on her floor. The illusion was gone. She wasn't looking at the charming, mature man her parents adored. She was looking at a monster. And she was finally seeing him clearly. He hit you, she whispered, her voice filled with a horrifying clarity. He was going to hit you. Mark, clutching his jaw, scrambled for his phone on the end table. You're crazy, he sputtered, blood trickling from his lip. You're both crazy. I'm calling the police. Assault. I'm having you arrested. Go ahead, I said, my heart still hammering. I carefully pulled my own phone from my pocket and stopped the recording. Call them. The cops arrived to a bizarre scene. Mark, holding a bag of frozen peas to his jaw, spinning a tale about his unhinged sister-in-law breaking into his home and attacking him unprovoked. I stood silently by the door and Chloe sat on the stairs wrapped in a blanket, looking like a ghost. She just flew at me, Mark said, playing the victim with practiced ease. One of the officers, a tired-looking woman with a notepad, turned to me. And your side of the story? My side is on my phone, I said, holding it out. He admitted to knowing about a secret phone he used to monitor his wife. He confessed to telling her what to do, and he threatened me before he took a swing. I just defended myself. I played the last 2 minutes of the recording. The officer's expression never changed, but she listened intently. The threats, the grab, the sound of the swing muffled, followed by the sharp crack of my fist connecting. It was all there. She looked at Chloe. Is this what happened? Chloe nodded, her voice barely audible. Yes. He was going to hit my sister. He was screaming. That was enough. They took our statements and left. No arrests were made. Just a recommendation that I not remain in the house. No problem there, I said. As soon as they were gone, I called my boss, Sarah. She ran a small marketing firm and had taken a chance on me when I was just a disillusioned dropout. She was more of a mentor than a boss. It happened, I said, no preamble. I need that lawyer you mentioned once. I'm on it, she said without hesitation. Is your sister safe? She's about to be. We packed a suitcase for Chloe in total silence. just the essentials. Mark stayed in the living room, a thundercloud of impotent rage making furious phone calls. I knew who he was calling. Sure enough, as we walked out the front door, my parents' car screeched into the driveway. They both got out, their faces twisted with fury. Mom rushed right past me to Mark, fussing over his face. "What did you do?" she shrieked, turning on me. "Look what you did to him." "He swung at me, Mom." "I have it on tape." "I don't care what you have on tape," my father boomed, his face beet red. "You have destroyed your sister's marriage after everything we did for her for you both." Chloe flinched behind me. "You did this to her," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You handed her over to this creep on a silver platter because he looked good on paper. You never listened. You never once cared if she was happy, only if she looked happy." "You've always been jealous," Mom sobbed, clinging to Mark's arm. "You couldn't stand to see her with a good stable man, so you ruined it." The golden child's perfect life shattered. And it was all my fault. It was the only story they could ever accept. I opened the passenger door for Chloe. She got in without a word, her face a pale, tear-streaked mask. I got in the driver's side and locked the doors. My parents were still screaming, banging on the window, but I just looked at them. Two people I had loved my whole life who had chosen an image over their own child. I put the car in reverse and pulled out of the driveway, leaving the three of them standing there in the wreckage of their perfect family portrait. Back in my small apartment 5 hours away from the blast zone, I made Chloe tea. She sat on my couch, wrapped in a quilt, staring into space. The divorce papers were already being drafted by Sarah's lawyer. She was free. She finally looked at me, her eyes clear for the first time in years. "Thank you," she whispered. It was a small sound, but it was the only victory I had ever needed.
Story teen.
My sister Sarah and I used to be an unbreakable team. When she was 19 and terrified, I was the first person she told she was bisexual. I held her while she cried, scared of how her parents would react. I was the one who sat with her when she told them ready to fight her corner. They were great, of course, but it was me she needed that day. For a decade, I was her person. Then she met Gary. The first red flag was our wedding invitation. Sarah and Gary invite you to celebrate their marriage. You. Singular. My boyfriend of 3 years, Mark, wasn't just a casual +1. He was practically family. I called her thinking it was a simple oversight. "Oh," she'd said, her voice tight. "Gary's family is traditional. It's just easier this way. To keep the peace." "Easier for who, Sarah?" I asked. "Please don't make this a thing, Jack." I didn't. I went alone, watched her marry a man with a stiff smile and a weak handshake, and felt a crack form in the foundation of us. After that, the rules became unspoken but clear. Mark and I were welcome at her new house, but only for brunch on a Saturday or an early dinner on a Tuesday. Never on a Friday night. Never on a weekend when Gary was guaranteed to be home. She'd invent excuses. Gary had a guy's night, he was working late, he wasn't feeling well. We all knew the truth. My relationship was something to be hidden, an inconvenience to her new life. So when she called me last Wednesday, her voice radiating forced cheerfulness, I was already on guard. "Hey, little bro, what are you up to this weekend?" "Not much. Mark and I were thinking of hitting that new brewery downtown." "Oh, great, great," she said, steamrolling right over the mention of his name. "Listen, I have a massive favor to ask. Gary and I have this conference we completely forgot about, and our sitter just canceled. Could you possibly watch Diana for us Friday night to Sunday afternoon?" Diana was Gary's 6-year-old daughter from his first marriage. A sweet, quiet kid with big, curious eyes. I loved her, but the request felt transactional. A deployment of the brother she kept on a shelf, dusted off only when needed. "I don't know, Sarah." "Please, Jack, you'd be saving my life." "Literally. My boss will kill me if I miss this. And Di loves you." The part of me that still remembered the unbreakable team won out. Fine. Yeah, okay. I'll do it. Friday evening, Sarah dropped Diana off, giving me a quick tense hug at the door before practically sprinting back to her car. Mark was making grilled cheese and tomato soup, Diana's favorite. He had her giggling in minutes, balancing a spoon on his nose. For a few hours, everything felt normal. It felt like family. Saturday morning, Mark had to head into the office for a few hours. He came to the door of the living room where I was watching cartoons with Diana. All right, I'm heading out, he said. Be back around 2. He leaned down and gave me a quick, simple kiss. The kind of absent-minded, affectionate gesture we'd shared 1,000 times. Bye, love you. Love you too, I said. He waved at Diana. Bye, Di, be good for your uncle. Bye, Mark, she chirped, her eyes glued to the TV. The moment passed. An hour later, during a commercial break, Diana turned to me, her head cocked. Uncle Jack. Yeah, sweetie. Why did your friend Mark kiss you? My stomach did a nervous little flip. The classic dreaded moment. The Times question asterisk. A dozen scenarios flashed through my mind, most of them ending in a mushroom cloud originating from Gary's head. But then I looked at her face. There was no judgment, no confusion. Just simple 6-year-old curiosity. She wasn't asking for a political statement, she was just asking a question. I took a breath. Well, sometimes a boy likes a boy the same way a man and a woman like each other. Like how your daddy likes Sarah. She processed that for a second, her brow furrowed. Then she nodded, a slow, solemn bob of her head. Okay. And that was it. She turned back to the TV, suddenly fascinated by a yogurt commercial. The conversation was over. The bomb had not gone off. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. It was fine. Everything was fine. On Sunday, just after lunch, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Gary. Asterisk, asterisk. What the fuck did you say to my daughter? Asterisk, asterisk. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Before I could even formulate a reply, my phone started ringing. Asterisk, Gary, asterisk. I answered, my heart pounding against my ribs. Hello. Don't you hello me, you sick bastard, he screamed, his voice distorted with rage. What the hell did you do? Diana just asked me if men can marry men. What kind of filth are you pushing on my kid? Gary, calm down, I said, my voice shaking. She asked a simple question. I gave her a simple age-appropriate answer. Age-appropriate, AGE appropriate. You don't get to decide what's appropriate for my daughter. You deliberately corrupted her. You pushed your sick lifestyle on her. It's not a lifestyle, it's who I am. I shot back my own anger, flaring. She saw Mark kiss me goodbye. What was I supposed to do? Lie to her? Yes. You should have said he was your cousin or your weird friend. I don't give a shit. Anything but the truth. There was a muffled sound, and then Sarah's voice was on the line. It was colder than Gary's. Jack, what were you thinking? She hissed. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, you can't be serious. She asked a question. You should have just changed the subject. You know how Gary is about this. You deliberately provoked him. I provoked him by existing in my own home, by getting a goodbye kiss from my partner. My God, Sarah, listen to yourself. This isn't about you, Jack. This is about Diana, she shrieked. Gary is freaking out. He's talking about taking her to a psychologist to see what kind of damage you've done. I just laughed. A hollow, broken sound. Damage. You think I times damage, times her, by telling her that gay people exist. You of all people. You made a mistake, Jack, she said, her voice flat and final. And now we have to clean it up. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen staring at my phone, my whole body trembling with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. My sister. The one I'd protected. The one I'd stood up for. She'd just thrown me under the bus to appease her bigoted husband. An hour later, an email notification pinged. The subject line was **** invoice for psychological assessment. ***. It was from Gary. The body of the email was short, brutal, and utterly insane. He had already booked an appointment with a child therapist for the following week to assess the emotional and psychological damage caused by your inappropriate disclosure. He accused me of grooming and demanded I pay the full cost of the therapy sessions, attaching a fee schedule from the clinic. The last sentence made the air leave my lungs. Asterisk. If you refuse to take financial responsibility for the harm you've caused, our lawyer will be in touch. Asterisk. I couldn't breathe. A lawsuit. He was threatening me with a lawsuit. For answering a child's question honestly. Stunned, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone, I called the only person I could think of. Dad, I choked out, my voice cracking. Jack, what's wrong? You sound terrible. I'm forwarding you an email, I stammered. From Gary. You need to see it. He's threatening to sue me. My dad, a lawyer for 35 years, was silent as I explained everything. The kiss, Diana's question, the phone call, the accusations. I could practically feel his fury radiating through the phone. He said what my dad finally said, his voice dangerously low. He's claiming you damaged Diana. Send me that email right now. I forwarded it. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a full minute. I could hear the faint sound of my mom in the background asking what was going on. Then my dad came back on the line and his voice was like ice and iron. Linda, get your coat. We're going to Sarah's. He spoke back into the phone, his tone leaving no room for argument. Jack, stay where you are. Don't call her. Don't answer if they call you. Your mother and I are on our way into the city. We're handling this. The call ended. I just stood there, phone in hand, the silence of my apartment roaring in my ears. I felt like I'd been in a car crash. Everything was distant, hazy, and my body was thrumming with an adrenaline I didn't know what to do with. Mark found me like that an hour later when he got home from work, just staring at the kitchen wall. He took one look at my face, dropped his bag, and had his arms around me. Jack, what happened? I couldn't form words. I just held him, burying my face in his shoulder, and finally let out the shuddering breath I'd been holding since Gary's text. I told him everything. Every vile word, every accusation, the email, the threat of a lawsuit. He listened, his expression hardening from concern to a quiet, controlled fury. That son of a bitch, he said, his voice low. And Sarah just let him. I just nodded the shame and heard of it fresh all over again. My phone rang, startling us both. It was my dad. I put it on speaker, my hand trembling so badly Mark had to steady it for me. Jack Dad's voice was tense. We're here, at Sarah's. I'm putting you on speaker. Your mother thinks you have a right to hear this. Don't say a word unless I ask you to understand. Okay, I whispered. The soundscape of the call changed. I could hear muffled voices, a door closing. Sarah, my dad said, his voice devoid of warmth. Where's your husband? Dad, what are you doing here? This is not a good time. Sarah's voice was strained, panicked. It's about to get a hell of a lot worse. Get Gary. There was a shuffle of feet, and then Gary's smug voice filled the speaker. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Come to apologize on behalf of your deviant son. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I heard my mom gasp. You will address my son as Jack, my dad said, his voice like granite. I've reviewed your email. Let me be clear. There will be no psychological assessment. There will be no invoice, and there will certainly be no lawsuit. If you so much as type my son's name in an email again, I will personally see to it that my firm buries you in so much litigation you'll be paying off the debt in your next life. Are we clear? You can't threaten me in my own home, Gary sputtered. That wasn't a threat, Dad replied coldly. That was the itinerary for your future. Now we're going to talk about the accusation you made. You believe Jack damaged your daughter. He exposed her to his lifestyle. He confused her. He's a groomer. The word hung in the air, ugly and venomous. Mark's hand tightened on my shoulder. My son answered a 6-year-old's question with a simple, honest sentence. My dad's voice was rising now, the lawyerly calm cracking to reveal the enraged father beneath. He told her, "Love is love. The only person who seems damaged by that concept is you, Gary. The only person pushing filth and corruption here is the man who would teach a child that some people's families are wrong, that her uncle is something to be ashamed of. I won't have her growing up thinking that's normal," Gary yelled. Thinking what's normal, that her uncle is happy, that he's in a loving relationship. Dad's voice was a roar now. You know, I worried when Sarah married you. I saw the way you looked at Jack and Mark. I saw the polite bigotry you tried to hide. But I kept my mouth shut for my daughter's sake. He paused, and the silence was heavy, dangerous. But this accusing my son of being a predator for existing, threatening him after he did you a favor? No. We're done. Dad, please, Sarah begged. Let's all just calm down. I am perfectly calm, Sarah, my father said. Gary, smelling what he thought was a victory, pushed his luck. He let out a condescending scoff. Look, I'm sorry you didn't raise him right, but don't worry. I won't make the same mistakes with Diana that you made with him. The line went dead quiet. It was the quiet of a fuse burning down to the dynamite. For a full 5 seconds, no one spoke. I felt the blood drain from my face. When my dad's voice came back, it was a whisper of pure ice. Get out of my daughter's house. What? Gary laughed. This is my time's house. Not while I'm in it, my father snapped. You are no longer a part of this family. You are not welcome at our home for holidays. You will not speak to me or my wife or my son ever again. You are a stranger to us. Now get out of my sight before I do something I don't regret. Sarah Gary shrieked his voice, pitching high with panic and disbelief. Are you going to let him talk to me like this? And this was it. The moment. The choice she had to make. My sister. My unbreakable team. I held my breath. Jack, she screamed, and her voice was suddenly directed at the phone at me. It was raw, hysterical, and full of a hatred I had never heard before. Are you happy now? Are you happy you've done this? You and your fucking mistake are destroying my marriage. You're ruining my life. The phone clicked. The line went dead. I dropped my phone onto the counter. The sound it made was small and pathetic. Ruining her life. My mistake. My existence was a mistake. That was inconveniencing her marriage to a monster. I sank onto a kitchen stool, the strength gone from my legs. Mark knelt in front of me, his hands on my knees. Jack. Breathe. Hey, look at me. Breathe. I didn't know how long we stayed like that. 10 minutes? An hour? Then there was a soft knock at our apartment door. Mark opened it to reveal my parents. My mom's eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. My dad just looked old. The fury had drained out of him, leaving a deep, hollowed-out sadness. Mom came straight to me, wrapping her arms around me so tightly it hurt. She didn't say anything. She just held me, stroking my hair like she did when I was a kid. Dad stood in the doorway, his hands shoved in his pockets. She chose him, he said, his voice rough. I told her, he goes or we go. She told us to leave. He finally looked at me, his eyes filled with a grief that mirrored my own. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I managed to choke out. We raised her to be kind, my mom whispered, her voice thick with tears. To be brave. I don't know who that woman is. We stood there for a long time, a new smaller family unit forged in the wreckage. My phone buzzed on the counter. We all looked at it. A text from Sarah. Asterisk, asterisk, I hope you're satisfied. Gary's gone to his brother's. You've broken our family. Don't ever contact me again. Asterisk, asterisk. I didn't feel rage anymore. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt empty. The unbreakable team was broken. The person I'd protected had fed me to the wolves to save herself. My father's actions, his righteous fury, hadn't been revenge. It had been a clarification. He hadn't banished Gary. He'd just revealed the walls that were already there, forcing Sarah to finally show us which side she was on. She'd made her choice. And now I had to live with it.